Hey guys! So, last week, as you probably know, I did the first 5 in my top 10 Tom Baker stories list. Why top 10 instead of top 5? Well, because I couldn't pick just 5. After all, he had 7 years and so many great stories. But, as promised this week, here's the next 5 in my top 10 Tom Baker stories list. The Seeds of Doom. One of the most action-packed and exciting adventures in the classic series. At 6 episodes, it seems like this story should feel too long with extra strength padding, but I think it moves along quite well. Part of that, I think, comes from the fact that it changes locations partway through. The story begins in the Antarctic as the Doctor and Sarah are sent by UNIT to investigate an alien plant pod found in the frozen wasteland, which they find transforms people slowly into plant creatures. It sounds a bit silly, I know, but it's actually executed really quite well. And horrifically. Anyway, their investigation takes them to England in the home of the amoral plant collector, Harrison Chase, who is often thought to be one of the best written and acted villains in the show's history. As much as I enjoy all of the classic series, this is the only one I can say kept me on the edge of my seat most of the time. Yeah, really good story. The Horror of Fang Rock. The first story in producer Graham Williams' era, this one feels more like a leftover from the previous Hinchcliffe Holmes era. I think behind the scenes, I think it was. The Doctor and Leela arrive at a lighthouse just before a ship crashes on the rocks. The passengers all survive and take shelter in said lighthouse, but soon people start dying. It seems someone or something else from the stars has also crashed on the rocks and is killing one by one. This story has a very creepy atmosphere, which really suits the location quite well. The tension is added to when it's discovered that the alien killer is a shapeshifter, so the characters are never quite sure who is really who. Another well-written, solid classic. Definitely worth a watch. I mean, I would think so, otherwise it wouldn't be on this list now, would it? The Deadly Assassin. Fitting between Sarah Jane's departure and Leela's arrival, this is the only story of the classic series to feature the Doctor traveling alone without a companion. While in his TARDIS, the Doctor gets a vision of the assassination of the Time Lord President. He goes to Gallifrey to find out what's going on and try to stop it. Although not able to prevent the murder, he discovers a conspiracy by an unknown member of the High Council, who also happens to be in league with the Doctor's arch-nemesis, the Master. I know some people don't like it, but I find it interesting whenever the Doctor goes back to Gallifrey, and we get to learn more about Time Lord society. And there's a lot of that here. Important stuff too, like the introduction of the Matrix, the repository of all Time Lord knowledge, which comes back several times in the series. I like the idea of the Matrix, and always thought it was cool, especially when I was younger, when the Doctor and the villain go inside and battle it out. Speaking of those battles, of course this is the story to feature the infamous cliffhanger of the villain drowning the Doctor, which caused Mary Whitehouse to complain to the BBC about the show becoming too violent for kids. Her concern was that it was too disturbing as a last image for kids to see shortly before bed. I'm not sure if I agree it's that bad, but not being a British kid growing up in the 70s, I wouldn't know. What do you think? Was it too intense? Were you a kid back then watching it when it first went out? If so, how did it affect you? I'd love to know. I'm kind of curious. Genesis of the Daleks. This is another story most fans see as one of the best of all time. I'm not sure I'd go that far myself, but it is good enough to get on this list. The Time Lords send the Doctor back in time to Skaro in an attempt to avert the creation of the Daleks. The Doctor, Sarah, and Harry arrive to find themselves stuck in the middle of the climactic and brutal war between the Khaleds and the Thals, and the machinations of the evil scientist Davros, creator of the Daleks. Although not perfect, I do think it drags on a little too long. Parts could be trimmed and, well, let's be honest, that giant clam is just silly. It is nevertheless a pretty well-directed, well-written, and well-acted piece of television. And it also begins one of my favorite aspects of the show, the Doctor's interactions with Davros. I always love the confrontations between those two, and that starts here. And while the future meetings are always good, the first, might always be the best. Terror of the Zygons. The Doctor, Sarah, and Harry, yep, them again, are called to Scotland by the Brigadier to investigate strange goings-on near Loch Ness. Oil rigs are being destroyed, and the damage appears to be done by a very large sea creature. Could the Loch Ness monster actually be real? And does it have an appetite for oil rigs? This is an interesting one for me, as it is the only one which I experienced first through the Target novelization. Perhaps that's one of the reasons I like it so much. It was early in my fandom, and I didn't even know there were novelizations until I came across this one in a local library. And as someone who was always fascinated by cryptozoology when I was a kid, I obviously checked it out immediately. How could I resist a title like Doctor Who and the Loch Ness Monster? I liked it, but when I saw the actual episode years later, I liked it even more. It's got a lot of fun moments as well as creepy ones, and a great monster who, although they never return in the original series, are fondly remembered enough to make returns in audios and even in the new series. So if you like stories about Scotland and the Loch Ness Monster and shapeshifting, then this is the story for you. As long as you can get past that puppet in the climax. So there it is, part 2 of my list. What did you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? As usual, let me know in the comments below what your favorite Tom Baker stories are. And yeah, let me know about that deadly assassin thing. What do you think of the cliffhanger? And I'll see you next week. Bye.